Alright, today we're going to glaze our pinch pot monsters. So we're going to talk about some of the things I did to get this one to turn out so nice. And we're going to also try to talk a little bit of our order. So you can see I've added lots of cool little spots and stripes to mine. Now we're going to make sure that we do that main color first, because it'll be a whole lot easier to paint the whole back of this turquoise and then put these dots on top versus like painting those dots first and then carefully going around all of those dots. So when I say like your main coat first, that's what I mean by that. So if I know that I want this monster to be, maybe red with maybe some yellow speckles or something, I'm going to do the whole thing red first and then go back maybe the next visit or after it dries to get some of those smaller details. There we go. Now that I turn it down a little bit, you can see my monster better. So the first thing to remember is that glaze is very special paint just for clay, and it needs to be applied very thickly in order for it to turn out shiny and smooth like these tiles. And the other thing to remember is that the glaze looks very different when we paint it on than how it turns out after it comes out of that kiln. So you want to make sure to leave these little rectangles at the glaze station so everybody can see how each one turns out. You'll see when I open up the red one here, so these go lefty-loosey, you'll notice the lids are two parts, so if they do come apart, the circle one goes on first and then the ring. I'm going to just set these aside. Look how different the inside of the red looks compared to this tile. And then if you kind of look at this dried up part along the rim, or this little dried up part here on this one, you can see it ends up drying almost kind of like a whitish pink color when it dries. But just remember, as long as you paint it 2 to 3 times, after it cooks, it will turn out like that tile. The black, for instance, dries kind of a gray. Light blue will dry kind of like a white. And again, that is normal. You just want to make sure that you like how the tile looks. Now, over by the glaze station, we have our water cups and all kinds of different size brushes. You may want to begin with a larger one to get that main color on there first. Now, I also like to keep a paper towel by me to just dry off my brush when I clean it in between colors. Now, the other thing is, because we have some of these textures on our monster, you may have to actually kind of like bounce your brush up and down to get it into those areas. Now imagine, even if I want to make my tail a different color, it's fine if I get some red on there, because every color is strong enough to go on top of another as long as you do it the 2 to 3 times. So I can tell that now that I'm getting closer to my face area, I'm going to have to switch to a smaller brush. But so far you can see I've just been kind of globbing on my red, dipping into the glaze often, and kind of doing little bouncing motions to get it into all those cracks. Your goal is to cover up all of the white spots, and when it dries, you really don't want to see any of the white clay showing through that color. If you do, then that will tell you to paint it one more time. So I'm going to let that dry for a little bit and come back and look to see if I can see any clay showing through. I'm going to maybe kind of rotate to this other big area to kind of bounce some more red in there. So take your time. This is a little bit of a slower process because I really want to get all of that white covered up. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush now for some of those other areas. Notice too, I'm kind of picking mine up and looking at it upside down to make sure I can get into all those hard to reach areas. But I'm going to try my best not to paint on the bottom because glaze will stick to whatever it's painted on, and we don't want it to kind of glue itself to the shelves we cook it on. So I just want to remind you quickly to clean your brush in between colors. Take it one color at a time, but everything, even really small little like eyelashes and stuff, you're going to want to paint that on a little bit thicker. If you get in the habit of kind of dipping your brush into the color each time, like for instance, like when I did these spots, I just dipped in the color each time. So I dipped into the bright green, put a dot, dipped into the bright green, did another dot, and then I repeated it with red after it dried. But then I only had to go over these dots once instead of 2 to 3 times. So it takes a little bit longer dipping in each time. Like same with these stripes, I dipped in each stripe. So that way I didn't have to go over all those little details 2 or 3 times. So continue to work with one color at a time. When you're done with a color, put the lid on, righty-tighty, and then please go set it back where that tile was. Then you can grab your next color to begin painting that too. So you can see I got a long ways to go. I just want to keep my eyes open for any white showing through and think about those fun little details that I can go back at with a smaller brush. Have fun, see what you can do.